Wow. Happy Friday slash weekend to all the sysadmin and IT people. Oh man, this Crowdstrike outage is the biggest global outage we have ever seen. There are billions of devices, airports, rail networks, payment systems, everything affected globally. If you're running Windows on a server, a desktop, a laptop with the Crowdstrike Falcon sensor agent, chances are you got a blue screen of death. Which, because this software is used practically everywhere for security, intrusion detection, and to prevent this very event that actually happened, which is kind of ironic, it meant that nearly half the global internet was affected. The good news is there is now a fix in place. If any system boots after 5:30 UTC time, they will not be affected by this. However, if you do have the blue screen of death, there is a manual workaround you are going to have to do across all of your systems, including servers. It involves booting into safe mode and deleting a problematic file. If you're running on a VM or EC2 instance where you can't boot into safe mode, there's some additional steps you can take. I'll put full links to the instructions in the description down below. Let's give a minute of silence to our sysadmins who now have to spend their entire weekend fixing this cluster, especially those who have BitLocker enabled on their laptops. So, what happened? According to Crowdstrike's official statement, this outage was caused by a faulty software update. They pushed out a deployment that caused all Windows systems running their Falcon sensor to crash into a blue screen of death loop. It only affects Windows hosts, so Mac and Linux are okay. Now, in their statement, they did apologize, and they also committed to being transparent around the root cause analysis, which I personally cannot wait for. When major global incidents like this happen, it is so easy to blame that poor engineer that made that code mistake. Personally, I feel sorry for them. I hope they are doing okay. I could only imagine what is going through their head knowing that they took down the globe. Given hospitals and emergency departments were affected, it would not be hyperbole to say people literally died from this mistake. But whenever instances like this happen, it is not the individual engineer's fault who made the change, but rather the entire organization. How was this able to happen? Because it is always a failure of system or process. If CrowdStrike were doing best practices, this event should never have been allowed to happen ever, period. There are two main questions I have from this global outage. Number one, how was this critical bug not picked up during the testing phase? And number two, why did they not do a phased rollout? At any organization, whenever you make a software change, you have to raise what they call a pull request. This allows you to move your code, which is sitting in a development environment, and move it into a testing environment, usually called UAT. As part of this process, normally you get somebody to review your work to make sure you haven't made obvious mistakes. You then have automated test harnesses that'll run against the code that you've implemented to make sure there haven't been any errors. And then finally, you need approvals to push it into the next environment. Now, automated test suites are not foolproof, and even if I give CrowdStrike the benefit of the doubt and say it didn't get picked up there is no way it should have passed UAT, a blue screen of death that affects every single Windows-based workload, including not only end-user laptops, but also virtualized servers as well. If they were following proper process, I just find it very difficult to believe that it did not get picked up in this stage. Now, many companies actually have more than just a UAT environment. They normally have like a pre-prod or SIT environment as well, before things finally go to prod. So there are multiple different areas that this should have been picked up on before it got to prod. There have been rumors online that an engineer skipped the entire testing process and pushed directly to production. That's just a rumor. However, even if that was true, again, it comes back to process. Regular engineers should not have the ability to bypass UAT and all your testing stages to push directly into production. And the second major question I have is, why was it not a staged rollout? I understand when it comes to security patches like critical software vulnerabilities, you want to push it out globally straight away. I get that. But for regular updates, why did they not do a phased rollout? With a phased rollout, instead of rolling a software change out to 100% of your customer base, you would do it with a smaller subset. Maybe you only release a change to 1 to 5% of your customer base. You would then wait a while and actively monitor for elevated error rates. That way, if you push out a dodgy update that takes everything offline like this did, you've only affected 5% of your customer base instead of everyone globally. And this is standard practice. I just can't wrap my head around those two things, why it wasn't picked up in testing and why they didn't do the phased rollout. Again, not the fault of the individual engineer who made the change, but rather the systems and processes CrowdStrike has in place. It's a bit scary and eye-opening to realize just how reliant we are on companies like CrowdStrike around the globe. How a failure on their part can take down our entire global infrastructure. And it is ironic that it came from security software in place to avoid outages and ransomware and exact situations like this. Hackers couldn't take our global infrastructure down, but a security company could. Have you guys been affected by this? Let me know in the comments down below. I am sending thoughts and prayers your way. It is going to be a rough weekend. I'll keep an eye out for that root cause analysis and make an update. Hope you guys are having a great weekend, not caught up in this, and I will catch you in the next one.